Congressman Thomas Massie could end up losing his job tomorrow. Why? Because a Trump-backed Republican is seeking to oust Massie as the Republican nominee for the 2026 seat in Kentucky's 4th Congressional District. Now, this race is set to take place tomorrow, and we should at least know the results tomorrow evening on what's going to happen. Today's video is to make a prediction on how this race turns out and what ultimately happens to Thomas Massie as we go forward. So, for starters, let's take a look at some of the most recent polls. Ed Gowrine, the candidate who's Trump-backed and running against Thomas Massie, is sitting at about a 7-point advantage, according to Gray House polling, against Massie in the latest poll. I mean, this was conducted May 16th through the 17th. And if we go and we look at other polling, we see similar situations. Well, where Gowrine's up 7 points. It's even. Massie was up at 1 point in the big data poll from May 12th through the 14th. Quantus Insights, Gowrine plus 8. Big data poll, April 3rd through the 7th, so this is over a month ago, Massie plus 5. But if we look overall, Gowrine has been leading in a lot of the polls in recent weeks for this race for the House seat in Kentucky's 4th Congressional District. So overall, looks very good for Ed Gowrine going into Election Day on who might be able to win this race. If we take a look at polling, we already took a look at polling. If we take a look at the betting markets, they also have Ed Gowrine ahead, 62% to Thomas Massie's 37% on winning. The interesting thing is that before about Saturday around 8 a.m., I want to say, let's see. Actually, my apologies. Saturday around 8 p.m. My bad. Thomas Massie was still leading this with 60% of the vote. But we switch over to the following day, yesterday, Sunday, May 17th, at 8 a.m., and Ed Gowrine has officially overtaken Thomas Massie and has only continued to grow his lead since then. So like I said before, Thomas Massie, up until just a couple of days ago, was leading in the polymarket betting odds. But as of today, that is not the case. Ed Gowrine, in fact, is the expected winner according to betting markets. Well, you may be asking, why is that the case? Well, some of it could be contributed to this. Louisiana had a primary over the weekend where long-term Senator Bill Cassidy lost his primary and came in 3rd place to not only Julia Letlow, but John Fleming. And ultimately, these two will face off in a runoff. But Bill Cassidy didn't even make it to the runoff, losing before the runoff even takes place. I mean, already losing, only receiving 24.8% of the vote across Louisiana. You may be saying, what does that have to do with this race in Kentucky? Well, not a lot. Of course, Louisiana and Kentucky are different states, but there is an interesting factor, and that's the fact that Bill Cassidy, long-term senator, Thomas Massie, long-term congressman, both had candidates who were Trump-backed as opponents. So we see Bill Cassidy really struggled to make up ground and win this race. We're going to see a similar situation happen in Kentucky's 4th Congressional District with Thomas Massie. What does Thomas Massie have on his side? Well, he does have a little bit, and that's the fact that there are a lot of Republicans still sticking with Thomas Massie. So we've seen people who typically would be Trump loyalists who have decided that it's time to stick with Thomas Massie. I mean, we've seen at the beginning of this year, or really, I guess, late last year, where Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene really teamed up, and Marjorie Taylor Greene's been on Team Massie since. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump faced a lot of criticism and a lot of a very harsh and public breakup, if you will, in the past few months. So certainly an interesting development there. But it's going to be really fascinating what happens here in the state of Kentucky, and really is going to tell us for certain. Of course, we already know how much Donald Trump has on the party, on the Republican Party, but this race really will tell us how big his grip is on the Republican Party. Because if Thomas Massie is able to win, it still says that there are candidates out there that aren't Trump-backed that can still win in deep red America, including Thomas Massie's district. I mean, if we go look at the specific development here, let's just take a look real fast. In Kentucky, give me 1 minute to get there. In Kentucky's 4th district, on the overall odds, give me a minute to load, we'll see that Thomas Massie, if he is the Republican nominee, he has a 99% chance of winning, and his margin would be 28.7% against a Democrat in the November election. So super important, and a super important district, and it's going to be in deep red America where Thomas Massie's district is. So what's going to happen? Well, like I said, we can't say for certain, but what we do know is that there are some significant differences from that of Louisiana's Bill Cassidy. Thomas Massie receiving support from people, like we've talked about, Marjorie Taylor Greene, even like Lauren Boebert, for instance. These people are sticking by Thomas Massie, while we're seeing traditional Republicans, people perhaps like Lindsey Graham, maybe decide to not stick by Thomas Massie. So it's a really interesting and honestly weird primary time. But what do I personally think is going to happen? Well, according to polling and according to the betting odds, there's no doubt that Ed Gowrine is, as of this point, the time that I'm filming this in the late afternoon of Monday, that Ed Gowrine certainly has a better chance of winning. And for that, that's why I have Ed Gowrine winning this race by about 4 percentage points overall in Kentucky's 4th Congressional House District for the 2026 midterms. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. Do I think that Thomas Massie can win? Yes, I do think that Thomas Massie can win. But ultimately, polling, betting odds, everything that we're supposed to look at and analyze within races has this race going to Ed Gowrine tomorrow. And we cannot deny that. Can all of that be wrong? Absolutely. Can I be wrong? Absolutely. But as of this point, it's very likely that Ed Gowrine is going to be the Republican nominee for Kentucky's 4th district, denying Thomas Massie an additional term, and ultimately winning in November. Ed Gowrine will officially become a congressman if he wins tomorrow night. So, with that said, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you believe Ed Gowrine wins this race, or do you believe Thomas Massie can pull it off? I would love to read through your thoughts over the next 24 hours and see what you guys are thinking on this race as well. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. You guys mean so much to me. I love reading through your thoughts and everything. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.